viewer like rant where I rant about whatever my $15 a month plus patrons want me to rant about. You can get one of these by being one of those. This one's for Ofish Toph, who says, rant about your favorite moments from Kara no Kyoukai and how your view on the series has changed since you released your video series on it. K and K is the first anime I watched and holds a special place in my heart, but I don't know if I'd feel the same way watching it now as I did when I was 17, when I thought it was the deepest thing I'd ever seen. Well, the funny thing about you asking me this question is that I haven't watched the movies since I wrote about them in 2014, except for the first one, which I watched with May somewhat more recently, though we were both very tired and I think she passed out in the middle of it. Um, but like the time I did those videos, it had already been like 7 years since I had first watched the movies. I guess 6 since I had watched all of them. So already my opinions of them had changed considerably because when they first came out, I was mega fucking into them. Like if you go back and read my old blog post, it's called like the perfect summation of my summation and culmination of my interest in media or something like that. Just I was like, this is everything I've ever wanted, basically, because the way that the plot is told out of order, the anachronic storytelling, and like the fact that it's kind of like a dark urban story that like takes place in the city, and fixates on characters with weird powers and like weird mental states, is very similar to Boogie Pop. And Boogie Pop and Others is like my favorite book as a teenager. You know, it was a huge part of my identity for years. And like while the Boogie Pop Phantom anime is pretty good, it really tries to be more of like a horror thing in a way that doesn't really match what Boogie Pop is like. Like it's more of an episodic horror story. Um, and like it does have more of the Lovecraftian horror element of Boogie Pop, but like Boogie Pop's more of a psychological study, and the anime did have an element of that, but with the novels, you really get to spend a lot of time with these characters and develop more of a profile of them as opposed to just having one episode to get to know somebody and their particular mental hangups. So like Boogie Pop Phantom was good, but not a perfect adaptation of this type of story. And Kara no Kyokai felt like exactly what I would have wanted a Boogie Pop anime to be like. Which is why it's really unfortunate that when we finally got the Boogie Pop and Others anime, it was not nearly as good as this. It was pretty shit, in my opinion, at like conveying the real appeal of the story. Um, but Kara no Kyokai does a great job, especially because actually reading Kara no Kyokai is not that easy. Like, it's not that well written. The prose is very convoluted and confusing. It doesn't translate easily because of the fact that Shiki basically refers to herself with masculine and feminine pronouns depending on which personality is inhabiting her, but those both translate as I in English, so it's very difficult to figure out what the fuck is going on with that. I know all this because I read the first part of it. Like, the part that's adapted for the first film is like pretty short and very confusingly written, and like it was translated in one of the Faust magazines, and it was like, even having seen the movie, I thought it was barely comprehensible. You know, particularly because of the translation being like, you know, just having the word I for both for both pronouns. So like, um, you know, the fact that the movie enhances the experience so much and has such a phenomenal Yuki Kajiura soundtrack, especially part one, which is my favorite soundtrack of them all, and just that really cool aesthetic. I'm a big fan of like the single color aesthetic of like that very, you know, monochromatic shading in a lot of the scenes. And like the imagery and music would be enough to make it something that I was really going to enjoy. And that's why I like all of them, you know, in spite of the fact that I'm not as invested in the story in some of them. And like I also appreciate them on like a fetishistic level of like the fact that they're all like these dark kind of sexual stories that also have to do with like weird gender identity stuff and like have all these supernatural ideas and like weird rule schemes. And of course, the best one is movie number five because the structure of the film is like a maze and it really hits you with like the high concept, crazy, violent shit. You know, that is what makes light novels so much fun. And you know, makes Fate and like other stuff by them, Type Moon, like all the other shit that they write is fun for those same reasons, for those hype over the top powers. So like, you know, I enjoyed those elements of Kara no Kyokai, even if I think the movies are not as easily watchable as I once thought. Like, I mean, the first one I've always known is like mostly exposition dumping, and it's like not particularly exciting of a movie. It's just that I like the weird concepts it's dealing with, and I like the aesthetic presentation so much that it does not matter to me that the movie is like kind of boring and weird. And like part 5 and part 7 are like legitimately enjoyable enough as movies to be like, okay, now I think Kara no Kyokai is cool. I'm like, I think if part 1 doesn't really click with you, it is a bit of a slog to watch all of the first 4 to get to the 5th one. And like you might not even be that impressed with it when you get there. But like if you really think part 5 and 7 are awesome movies, it definitely helps with the rest of it to enjoy it even more. Um, and like I do think it maybe I thought it was a lot deeper when I was younger. Maybe like because some of the themes it deals with of like Mikia not like really being a pacifist in the sense that he doesn't want anybody to have to be killed, but like also coming to terms with the fact that like he does he doesn't mind when he hears that certain people have been killed. It doesn't like make him feel bad because he thinks those people are just pieces of shit, you know. But he would just prefer no one get killed, and like in the end, even though he expressly had like you know he very desperately wanted to not have it on his consciousness that Shiki was a murderer, and like he had to have it in the end, you know. But like he's not going to be upset about it because it's like she saved his life. So you know, it's I like that element of it, but that's not necessarily groundbreaking or super unique. It's still just like something you can get from other stories, but I like all those elements. So it's still a movie series that I think I would still very much enjoy if I watched particularly the parts I really like. And you know, I don't think any of it's badly made per se. So it's not as though maybe like movie 8, like the shit that they did after the end, the epilogue, which I did not like as much, even though I know that's from the original book. But like the Mirai Fukuin movie, I thought was fucking terrible, and like I didn't see the point in bringing back Kara no Kyokai for something so asinine, you know. So like felt like they were driving it into the ground with that kind of shit. But nonetheless, I do like the original movies. So yeah, there's your answer.